Welcome in to the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we got a nice Thursday show planned for you today. Our guy Schlegs is here running around like a crazy man, and we are welcomed in by the one and only Bill Bender of the Sporting News. You can follow at Bill Bender 92. Check out all the great stuff that he's got going. Bill, what do we have cooking right now this week for the Sporting News? What are we working on?
Well, we have a Big Ten schedule rankings is up right now, and we went through that. We'll have the SEC tomorrow, and then a consensus. Bobby, I went through 11 publications. It's list season, as you know. Went through like The Athletic, CBS Sports, and came up with a consensus top 25 for the post springs. I like to look at everybody's and kind of see what everybody thinks and where everybody has everybody. And, one of the things I noticed right off the top, we can go right into it, that Ohio State was number 2 behind Texas, which, again, game of the century in week 1. Penn State and Ohio State across these 11 publications were separated by just 2 points. So there is a lot of, I don't even know if hype's the right word around Penn State, but that it is a 1A, 1B situation, at least among the preseason polls among those 2 Big Ten schools.
How do you factor in the coaching with all of that, Bill? And, I know last year was made a lot about Ryan Day not being able to win the big game, and then you win, 4 top 10 games in a row, and that changes your percentage of victory to, versus top 10 and top 5 teams, to where now it's something that's pretty impressive. And, it's interesting. Like, it doesn't change until it changes, until you're able to get those wins. Is there a confidence in James Franklin? They've got everybody returning. I mean, outside of Tyler Warren, and obviously you lose Carter, you lose a couple guys right at the top of the draft. But outside of that, I mean, you get everybody back, including your starting quarterback, and they're one of the few teams in college football near the top of the heap that won't be breaking in a new quarterback. So you feel like everything is set up for them to be able to make this push. It's still tight. Do you trust James Franklin to get that done?
Well, first of all, so I think it was on here last week or the week before, I had said that Ryan Day hadn't lost to an unranked team, and the dummy that I am, I forgot about the regular season finale last year. But I guess I look at that game differently anyway. If it's literally throw the records out the window game, that type deal, like I don't think losing to Michigan in the finale is the equivalent of losing to Purdue in 2018. So to make my point, James Franklin, the last 3 years, 29-0 against unranked opponents, 5-8 against ranked opponents. And that's where, I've been asked a lot, when's he going to get them over the top? Well, what is the top for Penn State? I think it's a couple things. I think it's Ohio State. They haven't beat Ohio State since 2016. It's winning a Big Ten championship. Ohio State's done that. Michigan's done that. Oregon did that last year. It's winning the program's first national championship since 1986. And I think James Franklin, there's varying levels of pressure there. And I really believe it begins with Ohio State. They have to, if they beat Ohio State, it unlocks everything else. And they've had some really close games. I've been to most of those close games where the Nittany Lions lost in the fourth quarter. And I mean, that to me is the ultimate pressure point. Maybe that's not what everybody else in the national media thinks, but I think it's rooted there, especially with Jim Knowles being on the other sideline.
That's what I was going to go into next. I mean, like, being so close, is it more it's so close because of the variables and the young guys that Ohio State has to fill the gap? Or is it the fact that Penn State has so many of the veteran guys, but they also added Jim Knowles, they added Stan Drayton, they added some guys that have some pedigree and experience to help Jim Knowles get over that hump? What's your thought? Because still the weakest part of them offensively, you can have 2 great defenses, but if you can't score and you don't have the wide receivers to help Aller, who just throws it for less than 7 yards every single time, like, how is it even close then if you don't have the people, the horses in the stable to get it done?
Well, I mean, they do have the 2 1,000-yard running backs coming back.
Right.
Singleton, their offensive line should be good. Their offensive line has improved steadily. That used to be the knock in the big games for me, is they didn't have it in the trenches. So one big difference to me between Penn State and Ohio State going into this year is Penn State lost their 2 best players to the NFL draft, Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. Those aren't like, oh, we can just fill that position. Tyler Warren, you guys watched the USC game. He took over a game. Abdul Carter had the ability to do that. Ohio State returns its two best players, Jeremiah Smith on one side, Caleb Downs on the other. And I guess the math is, okay, but they're losing 14 guys to the NFL. That is true. And that's why I think they're so close, as Penn State does have a lot of returners. But the pressure is still on the Nittany Lions to go into Ohio State and win that game. And when you look at the Big Ten schedules that we have up at Sporting News, the way I do that is I just look at, okay, how many ranked teams are you playing? Are you playing those games at home? Are you playing those games on the road? Kind of tabulate a formula from there. Penn State does have a harder schedule, or no, an easier schedule than Ohio State does. But that's why that game's so important.
How asymmetric are those schedules as you've looked around? As we've seen the conferences balloon, I mean, you can avoid the top three teams, as we see like Rutgers had done and Illinois did to a certain extent last year. Some of the schedules are much tougher, and that's true of the SEC. It's true of the Big Ten. When you get these mega conferences, what degrees of asymmetry outside of just ranking them, when you start looking at some of these different teams, I mean, how many wins or / losses do you think that's really worth?
Well, the first thing I look at the Big Ten schedules is, okay, which teams have to play Ohio State and Michigan? I've done that forever, because that's how we kind of try to find our Big Ten sleeper. It's the guy that doesn't have to play those two. So Wisconsin's one of three schools that has to play both, and they're also playing Alabama. Their schedule is brutal. They're the only Big Ten team that is playing 5 ranked teams as of now. Now, that can change, but, I mean, Luke Fickell, that is a tough schedule for the Badgers. And you know what? He was very insightful at Big Ten Media Day last year about that. He is a big proponent of playing the tough schedule as long as you get the benefit of the doubt from the committee. So if Wisconsin were able to go 9-3 against what they're playing, I think they would deserve that benefit of the doubt. You look at it, it's very tough. And then on the other end of it, Illinois, a big reason why we're calling them a preseason sleeper. Yeah, they're top 10 and won 10 games. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan, or they do play Ohio State. That's the only one. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Penn State. Ohio State's the only ranked team on their schedule.
Hey, Richard, we were talking briefly yesterday, and we're going to hit it up more, but Jim Marshall passed. And switching gears a little bit, give us a little rundown of Jim Marshall and his impact at Ohio State, where he kind of stands, your thoughts on him. Tough dude. Consecutive starts, what was it, Bob? Like 253?
Oh, 282.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about Jim Marshall.
Well, I mean, obviously known for the highlight, right? That we all saw on NFL films. But that's
Jim Marshall's running the wrong way. The wrong way.
I always love the ball. Yeah, that's my favorite part, Schlegs.
Yeah, exactly.
Highlight is he chucks the ball and then he's like, "Oh, I ran the wrong way." But you're dealing with one of those guys that obviously, when we were growing up, you're told about it with the Purple People Eaters and Ohio State, and just being a tough interior, defensive end, defensive lineman over the years. And you know what? I know at Sporting News we're starting a project this week, and these lists have been done over the years where we're going to rank top 15 Buckeyes, top 15 Wolverines, Notre Dame, etc. We were talking about it yesterday, and it's interesting when you start to look at those lists at just how do you even start an Ohio State list? I think I know who to start with number 1, and then you get into the rest, and you're like, man, there's so many All-Americans, so many awards. So that's one of the projects we'll be working on over the next couple weeks. I may actually seek you guys for advice on some tiebreakers.
Okay. Well, that's what we were gonna get into that until the shoe renovation, everything started coming up, and just even doing forget defensive players or total team, let's just look at defensive line at Ohio State and try to quantify that, what that potentially looks like with Jim Marshall, because just people that I've known and I've seen, and trying to separate out NFL performances. Now, granted, by the way, Bo, did you know he's not in the NFL Hall of Fame?
I knew that, and I always wondered. He's one that I always wondered why. There's a handful of players. I mean, not to get too far down the road on this, but like a Jim Marshall, a Ken Anderson. Yeah. Why is Ken Anderson not in the Hall of Fame? He's one of the best. I get that one from my Bengals buddies all the time, and there are a couple others like that. As a Packers guy, I'm glad Sterling Sharp's finally in, but that is definitely a factor. But when you're talking about Ohio State, another thing. So in 2015, I did this list. I did the top 10 Ohio State players, like I said, everybody else. And at the time, it was, Archie was one, and then the usuals. There was Heisman winners, Troy Smith. It will be interesting to me as I start to look into this, how many from 15 on factor into the list. They've had so many good players in the last 15 years, let alone this century. You could almost, I think you would almost have to do it like pre-2000, post-2000, and you could probably come up with two pretty good lists there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So when you think of Ohio State defensive line, Richard, just off the top of your head, start saying something, because you're absolutely right. It's out of sight, out of mind, and we forget the previous, like they're 2000 and below, the last century, the 1900s, so to speak, because we've had so much success. And there's a great graphic that Bob and I both mutually put into the chat about wins over the last 25 years. But when you go through and you look at defensive linemen at Ohio State, where do you even like to start?
Oh, man. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Will Smith. And that's this century alone, right?
That's this century, right?
That's just this century.
And was surprisingly enough, John Simon was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2012 in the Big Ten.
Right. And then, you get into, the guys from the Cooper era. They had plenty of players like Vrabel. Vrabel was he linebacker or defensive end? He was a defensive end. Yeah. So that whole front was good. And
you have Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson, who was the number 1 overall pick. Like, I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get for college.
Right. And then you get into you guys' position group, and it just gets ridiculous at that point. You're like, how many of these guys, how do you sort between, Cousineau and Gradisher and, you guys' era where, again, there's so many good ones. I think I was at lacrosse practice the other night. I was talking to a dad about you guys behind your back, but in a good way. I was talking about when Coach Tressel was telling me about you two, Freeman and Hawk in the same room. And I'm like, I mean, can you picture that? Like, that's ridiculous that they had that. And they've continued to build on that position group. I know, Laurinaitis, obviously 3-time All-American. So and again, you could almost separate offense and defense and come up with two really good lists here.
Yeah, it's wild. You'd have to, breaking it down by position group, and some of them are so loaded, especially with some of the guys in the last 25 years, Bill. It's absolutely crazy to think of and crazy to see. But Jim Marshall, like, he just, not him being in the Hall of Fame. And what's wild, Bill, is he is, I think, 22nd in sacks in the NFL. And you've got to think, he played back in the 60s and 70s when sacks weren't at a premium because no one really threw the ball the way that they do now. And so, like, that's completely shifted that paradigm. And despite, 45, 50 years passing, he's still at 22nd as part of that Purple People Eater front four. And it's unbelievable that, like, I know he has the wrong way run. And, like, I feel like that's almost held him back despite all of the other accolades that he was able to achieve.
Well, those Vikings teams, they played in 4 Super Bowls and dominated the NFC at the time. And I know but look at the teams they played in the Super Bowl. They would run into a Dolphins team with Larry Zonka. They played the Steelers when the Steelers won their first Super Bowl. They played the Raiders, that John Madden team. So it wasn't like those I think the Vikings are kind of one of those teams that, and I'm saying all these nice things about you see the Packers helmet behind me. So you're forcing me to say all these nice things about Minnesota, but they had those chances with Fran Tarkenton and those teams. But I know they were the team in the NFC North or NFC Central at the time that kind of defined the 70s, and that group with Marshall and Alan Page, who, depending on which Notre Dame fan you're talking to, that's one of their greatest players. He makes their top 5 all the time. So, what a group they were on the field, off the field. Great example. I feel like they played in 4 Super Bowls, and I'm kicking myself right now because I'm trying to figure out who the 4th one was. But what a group they had. Maybe it was just,
I think the Raiders. Was it the Raiders in one of those?
Yeah, they beat the Raiders beat them with Jim Marshall, and Oh, the Chiefs. That was the other one.
Chiefs.
Super Bowl 4. So I got all 4. I would have kicked myself if I
Good for you, man.
There you go.
That's
Good
why
job,
you're with the
sir.
sporting news.
It is. Bill's encyclopedia of knowledge. I got a couple other questions I want to pop at him here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll go more with Bill Bender when we come back.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
Welcome back to the Bobby Carpenter Show, and still here with our guy, Mr. Bill Bender. And Bill, I want to transition a little bit. You know, they had the SEC spring meetings talking about all the different playoff scenarios, what it could look like. Greg Sankey's up there saying not go to the game, and we've kind of talked all of that. Well, finally, Ryan Day was at camp, and he was sat down, I think, with ESPN, and he talked about how he likes he thinks the Big Ten should get 4 automatic bids. I think had mentioned you like the 15 and heck just +1 or, the 5 + 11 or whatever it is to try to make sure that you're getting the best teams in there. And I really wasn't a huge fan of the automatic qualifiers. Were you surprised to hear Ryan, who kind of is the first person on the Big Ten to speak on this, say that?
A little bit, but I mean, I understand where he's coming from. And the way I look at Ohio State in this playoff setup, at least for the foreseeable future, is how when you're doing the NCAA tournament bracket, you just assume that, like Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, they're always going to be in. I think the Big Ten will get 4 or more every year anyway. And that was kind of the point. So if they want to ensure that, that's fine. But, as I was watching the final weekend of the regular season and then the conference championships last year, it was given that Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State were going to go to the playoff. Indiana, we had some debate about that. And maybe that's where that's coming from, is he's thinking about that 4th and 5th team. Whereas in most years, I think they're going to get in. But Indiana's spot wasn't a slam dunk because we picked apart their resume, Bobby. And I think Illinois could be that team this year. Let's say Illinois goes 11-1 and loses to Illinois. Or loses to Ohio State. They were not going to lose to themselves. But they play, I think they have a little bit more meat on their schedule. They do play Nebraska. They do play Indiana. They play USC. So I think at that point, we won't debate Illinois as much. But maybe that's rooted in Coach Day looking out for the, that 4th team.
All right, Richard. So you just mentioned Ryan Day talking about, hey, Big Ten gets 4. Talking about conferences maybe going to 10 games versus where the SEC's already at 9. We have 18 teams that are already in the Big Ten. We've heard the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model. You've heard the 5 + 11 to where they get in. We actually had, Brett Yormark from the Big 12, actually on Joel Klatt talking about they don't want any gimmies. They think this is the best for college football. Where are you leaning to where you think it's going to be the 4-4-2-2-1-3 or the 5 and 11? Where do you think it's actually going to play out and happen?
I think we'll get the 5-11 model. I almost am wondering whether or not they put out the 4-4-2-2-1-3 so that we could shut it down. Because most of the reaction to that, they call that, I guess, a trial balloon. I've heard that phrase before. Yeah, and
nice.
Most of us said, no, I don't want that. But it's been talked about, certainly. And the 5-11 model, I think the coaches favor, because when you talk to most college football coaches, they're going to want, I think most of them would say, let's get the best teams in there. And at the 5-11 model, you have the 5 highest ranked conference champions. I guess the only glitch, and again, we deal with the sport where we complain about the first thing we can complain about. I'll use my alma mater since we talk about them all the time. Let's say Ohio, which won the MAC last year, wins the MAC, highest ranked group of 5 school at number 18, and they in this format. And then they bump out the 16th ranked team, which would be, let's say Iowa's 16th, and Ohio gets that spot instead of Iowa, there would be some complaining there. And then the conversation becomes, why are we letting the group of 5 in the playoff? So then, though, I think at that point we'll push for a 4-12 model or something. And that's something that you always look at when you put out a model. I guess maybe it's my personality, guys. I always say, okay, what could go wrong? I look at that first instead of what could go right, because I want to make sure it's perfect.
Well, then when you go ahead, Bob. Sorry, buddy.
Well, what was interesting last year, if you go back and look, it would have been, I guess, Clemson was at 16, so the top 16 teams would have gotten in under the current structure of how it worked, and so that would have kind of solved a lot of the problems, even under the current structure with whoever got in. If they just would have expanded to 16 into the top 16, all of those boxes would have been checked. So you still had that availability for you. I guess the thing that I look at with this, and this is one thing, is with Ohio State, as they were talking about their non-conference schedule, playing Texas obviously the next couple of years, have Bama after that, a year off, and then a couple of games with Georgia. I want to preserve those big non-conference games, and finding ways to do that. I think the automatic qualifier, which I don't like, does do that a little more, because it's not going to be as punitive for you if you go out and play a hard schedule and then you're still near the top of your conference.
For sure. And I think that's what Coach Fickle was driving at last year. He's like, yeah, we want to play Alabama. We want to play at Alabama. We want to have them come up to Madison. And I think, one of the things when you look at the SEC this year, and I'm going to harp on this all offseason into September, they have 8 games as of now against ranked non-conference opponents. Ohio State, Texas, obviously one of them, Oklahoma, Michigan, Notre Dame as they're playing Arkansas and Texas A&M. Watch the SEC's record in those 8 games. LSU, Clemson, there's another one. If it's 5-3 or 6-2, they'll be like, we're fine. If it's 2-6 and it costs them a playoff berth, I think you're going to see Greg Sankey talk a lot about that next offseason, because the next endangered species on the rivalry list is Florida State, Louisville, Kentucky, Clemson, South Carolina, especially if the SEC wants to go to 9 games. And then on top of that, and you've heard it being talked about, this supposed like Big Ten SEC challenge where they play each other one week, which, by the way, I'm all in favor of. I think it'd be amazing. But something's got to give if you do that.
Right. And that's the point. I mean, if you have the Big 12 and they're playing 9 or 8 conference games, let's say 9, and then they're playing a bunch of teams that are unranked or whatever, like their strength of schedule is terrible, where does that fit in? Who's making that call versus the Big 10 that's playing 10, SEC's playing 9, they're playing a SEC Big 10 challenge. How does that fit into the equation when you look over there and you see a team, like to your point, Ohio, let's just say they're 11-1 at the end and they're still ranked up there, but they played really nobody except the people in their conference, and those are the ones they're supposed to play, and their one loss was to an Ohio State. Where do they rank in that top 16? Like, that's the hardest thing to equate.
Right. And well, that won't be a problem for the Bobcats this year. We got Rutgers, Ohio State, and West Virginia. So
buckle up, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, nobody can say the Bobcats are ducking anybody this year. But to your point, yeah, they definitely, that's something that we're going to consider. And Schlegs, the thought of an SEC Big Ten schedule arrangement is really enticing to me, because then I was talking to Tim May about this years ago. I believe he covered a game where LSU played at the Shoe. Those are the games I want to see. I want to see LSU come up to the Shoe. I want to see Ohio State go down to, Death Valley, maybe not at night, but that's a topic for another day, because we can't get Ohio State at Texas at night. Maybe we should have opened that with this. But, I want to see those games. I want to see them go play Alabama, Auburn. I think that's healthy for both conferences, and those are always my favorite games to watch.
Well, is that a way, this goes to both you guys, is that a way then of eliminating the conference championship game, which really is nullified now because you have an expanded playoff, to where when you have better non-conference like matchups like that during the season, to have those games to generate the eyeballs that they want on TV?
Yeah.
Bob or Bill?
We need to, and I'll let Bobby take it too, but like we need to find, if we're going to get rid of the conference championship games, you're going to hear the networks and the commissioners and the administrators say, we've got to find a way to get that money back. You're on to something there. That's one way. I mean, huge eyeballs. If it's week 3 or week 2 and LSU's coming up to Ohio State at 8 p.m. I mean, who's not tuning into that game?
Yeah, the Big Ten SEC challenge would be the way to eliminate that. I just don't. If you're going to do that, it seems like that's where they'll want to lump in those AQs. And then in doing that, the Big Ten's talked about the playing games with the 3, 6, 4, 5, and just adding more inventory to be able to consume. But nobody wants to watch, Rutgers and Purdue. They want to watch the best games at the best time slots. And so trying to figure that out and work all that with the revenue piece. One of the other big comments, Bill, and we'll kind of finish off with this topic here. You're a fan, you live in Central Ohio. You travel around, you get a chance to see all these iconic stadiums. There's a revenue crisis in college football because of the expenses that have now jumped because of the splitting of the House settlement, which looks inevitable. However, maybe the next question will be what happens if it doesn't go through here this summer, but it looks inevitable. They're talking about renovating, doing some stuff with the Horseshoe and adding some field level suites. You got these iconic venues. And there's a lot of passion that is surrounding these iconic venues and renovations to them and what they need to look like. Kind of where do you fall in on, the tweaking of some of these stadiums and the overhauls that ultimately come at the expense of trying to, maybe the expense of tradition a little bit, although I don't think this is that big, but also of trying to modernize a stadium and bring it up to the 21st century with the making sure that it maintains all of that integrity and nostalgia that's always been there.
Right. And I think, yes, there was a lot of talk about the game day experience at Ohio State last year. And I think this is a compromise of sorts. You want, like I said, I'm old school. I like going into old stadiums. I'm one of the guys that thinks the Rose Bowl's the coolest venue in the world because of the history and walking up the tunnel and seeing all those things. So, I think Ohio State can maintain that while adding some things to it like that. I did see the mock-up for what that might look like, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So, as long as we can do that without, taking away from the history and, the important parts of that stadium, the traditions, that's what college football is about. And, no more like a place like Central Ohio where the traditions around Ohio Stadium at an early age.
Yeah. So now there's another thing too. So ROTC changes, band changes. They go into the closed end, which is the loudest. I love that they're going to be over there in that section. What does this do, Bob, Bill, that you guys know? Like, what does it do for the visiting band and fans? And, where do they get to go now? And do you like that move, Bill, that they're over in the closed end of the stadium? That's where overtime needs to be. Hopefully we don't have that, but if so, let's go to the closed end.
I'm not sure where they're putting the visiting band, but I mean, that would be, I'm picturing it now.
Should battle the bands right next to each other. And just
next to each other on each side of the corner. I mean, of all the games that I've covered at Ohio Stadium, the most electric one was obviously 2016 overtime. Now that you're bringing that up, because that was the first time, it was Michigan, Ohio State. It was overtime. You could see where just the energy from both sides of the stadium. So I think they're going to need to think that out for sure. I don't know where they're going to stick the band, if they stick them up on the left corner somewhere, but for the opposing team, but I didn't even think about that. And I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Bump that band.
Yeah. There might not be a great one as they're trying to maximize revenue, but Bill, they're trying to do the best they can. Ross Bjork's given a tough task with all this. And maybe our next time we'll start talking about what the future of not just football looks like, but of all college athletics as we kind of move into this new world and the privatization of some of the athletic departments and everything else. So we'll save that for another day. We'll get you out of here, Bill. We appreciate your time. Go enjoy your Thursday, because in Athens, they always say Thursday is the first day of the weekend.
Oh, yeah, I know that. But thanks so much for having me on. I'll talk to you guys next week. Appreciate it.
There's our guy, Bill Bender of the Sporting News, doing a great job. Before you go on, I want to tell you this. Attention parents and athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes and designed by NHL team Dentist. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber. They 3D print that bad boy to your own custom smile, which means more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication. So you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Do not take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby to save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. You know, more of the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. All right, Ryan Day sat down. We were talking a little bit about, you know, some of the stuff that he was getting into, but, you know, how does he feel about Brian Hartline, Schlegs? And is he ready to take over? We've talked about this a lot. You know, Ryan didn't, Brian called plays 2 years ago. He kind of took that back over. Chip Kelly came in. He then was running the show. And now, you know, Hart's going to be ready to do it. And he's the guy. And he has talked a lot. He talked on here about learning so much about Chip Kelly. He wanted to even learn from him from another year. It was just unfortunate he had to leave and say had to. He got $6 million to go just be a coordinator in the NFL, no recruiting. But this is Ryan Day sitting down and talking about Brian Hartline. And is he ready? Because that's a big question, Pat. So throw that up there and let's hear it. Take a listen.
What will be the biggest change for Brian this year?
You know, when you're now the play caller, you have to manage the staff, you know, and you have to coach the coaches, and then you have to still figure out, you know, your plan of attack when it comes to, you know, coaching the wide receivers, communicating with the quarterback, organizing the game plan. I mean, it's a different role. So that'll be the biggest, you know, change for him. But it's like anything else. The more experience you get at it, the better you'll be. And I thought he did some great work in the playoff run. I thought he did a great job in a lot of the play design in the pass game. And we've been together now working on 8 years. So, you know, he's more ready than ever and excited to see how it goes.
Your thoughts,
Yep. Hey, here's my thoughts. Absolutely correct. And, you know, I mean, he's more ready than ever. He was there, obviously got to watch Ryan do what he does, understand the why behind what he does. Then he gets a year with Chip Kelly. Now he gets to go back and redo it. More years of maturity. He already knows where the wide receivers stand. Devin Jordan is the wide receiver assistant who's been there the entire time with Ryan. Somebody that he probably unequivocally trusts to do his job so he could focus on other things, right? Because now it's more than the wide receivers. It's the offensive line. It's the running backs. It's the quarterbacks. It's the tight ends. And you obviously had continuity with some of those guys on that staff for at least 1 year. And now you're bringing in an offensive line and multiple assistants. I mean, our coaching staff is, you know, humongous, right? It's enormous. So that managing those people along with calling plays, and then still the greatest problem you have at Ohio State offensively is that there is one football and many weapons. Oh. How do you satisfy all those people and parents and agents that everybody get their touches while also doing your job, which is to win games? That's the bumpiest. That's the one part of it that I would hate if I was Brian Hartline.
Well, don't worry about that, man. You call this stuff, it works.
I saw him the other day, and he looked super tan and was getting bumpy for a second workout because his first one got cut short, so he was going back in. He gets a little neck towel and he puts it in his pant like it's a towel for his hands. I was like, appreciate that. You know,
what do you mean a neck towel?
You know how we have the towels and the benches in there that we use for neck or like wipe, to wipe your face off.
Those are just the sweat towels. I fold that up. I think he stole that from me. I hang that out of my pants.
You hang that too?
Yeah.
So now not only do you just have ball juice on there, you're taking the stuff that's rubbing down the sweat that's going into your thumajig.
Not rubbing. Right. It's just hanging there. I'm not using it.
Hanging it around your balls.
Hanging around. It's fine, but I'm not sitting on it. It's like on top of my thigh. I offset it.
It is. If you put it on the chest and you do a chest supported rows, it's sitting there right on your junk.
I take it out whenever I do that stuff, and I usually toss it on something. But whenever I'm when I'm transitioning, if you will, Schlegs, you know a lot about that. I tri-fold it and I put it like right above my left hip. so it's offset. It's not a dead center swing. So
Okay.
that solves that problem.
Solves that problem. Got it.
You
Got
got-
it. No, I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be really good. And I think it's good for Ryan. I think it's good for Ryan too.
Well, it will be, because then Ryan will be able to work in the business,
On the business.
instead of working in the business. So good stuff there out of that. We got our headlines coming up next, Schlegs. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Backer, BCKR, premium Buckeye gear. Their hats and coats are phenomenal. They've got the raincoats. They've got the cold weather stuff. They've got the windbreakers, custom made, high level gear, the type of stuff that you want to wear, the fishing, the hunting, the golfing gear, all those things. They have it there for you. And now, boom, slap a Buckeye logo on it and you're ready to go. It's Buckeyes for you. And go to backer.com, BCKR. And when you spend money there, a portion of it goes back to the players. And then you use promo code Bobby, BOBBY, all caps at checkout. Poof David Copperfield, you're getting free expedited shipping coming right to you. Again, that's Backer, BCKR.com. Go check it out. Headlines coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, Schlegs, we got our headlines here, brought to you by our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing, full service agency built on trust, strategy, performance. The Lake Spur team shields you and your team from the outside noise and cold collars. They let you do what you do best, just like what Brian Hartline is going to let Ryan Day do, work on the business. You don't have to work in it. With more than 100 years of experience, Lake Spur Marketing, they eliminate the waste. They deliver on time, which is key, and on budget, even better. Don't chase the clicks. They build partnerships. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in the partners. So as I saw this, and we talk about chasing the dollar all the time and getting the bag, if you will. And I was talking to Rick Neuheisel on Full Ride today about college visits and hosting college visits and how important it was, and how you had an awesome time at places, and then you'd go to school there, and how Rob Gronkowski went to Arizona because he said they had the hottest chicks and the best time. And Rick goes, I can't disagree with that. I can't deny it. But sometimes it's not all about chasing the dollar, because now it's all about like, hey, how much money are you going to give me? And everything else will take care of itself. Sometimes it's about things that are bigger than that. And I've always enjoyed the Carr brothers. And I said, David would have been one heck of an NFL quarterback if he didn't go ultimately to the Texans and was just destroyed with their terrible offensive line for 5 years. And it really ruined him. I got a chance to meet his brother, David, Touchdown Club of Columbus. Derek, they were both there, and Derek was winning, an award, and they were just unbelievably humble people, Schlegs. And we can toss this up. And so he had a contract, turning down $30 million, and ultimately after opting for retirement. And if you flip across, you can see he said, I didn't want to have surgery and just sit there because it sounds crazy and just takes the Saints money. Because if he would have had surgery, his contract would have been guaranteed. He wouldn't have been able to pass a physical, and they couldn't have cut him without paying him. So I felt like it was just the right thing to do for myself and for the team. I've gained all of these things that the world has to offer, and it doesn't really do anything for your heart. I knew my heart was at peace, and that's really all that mattered. Derek
Gain the world, lose your soul. I mean, that's pretty astonishing in 2025. And again, let's go back, guys. Like, there is workman's comp. They have to pay for his surgery. He just said, I'm retiring, going to do that. He also is a competitor. He's had multiple contracts. Like you said, he's gained everything that he's wanted in this world. And he did what was right for the team. The team has to do nothing. They don't have to reciprocate any of this. But when you just feel something, I always tell people, man, act upon your convictions. And that's how he felt in this situation, regardless of the money. I'm grateful that he was able to explain it that way, because there's a lot of things that we all do where, it's just in my best interest to not do that or not go after that job? Or why am I actually doing this? If I do want other things in my life and more bandwidth and more time, then why am I going to go chase the dollars when then it also doesn't allow me to do the things that I'm truly passionate about? Just live within your means. And that's a completely different conversation with somebody that's made multiple $1 million, throughout their career at a younger age. But it's the reality of the situation. So I just appreciate his transparency and what he did.
Did you get your stuff delivered today?
No, it's not here yet. I haven't got a call yet either.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Terrible.
I thought the window was from 9 to noon.
Well, the original window was from 9 to 3.
Who gives you a 9 to 3 delivery window? What is that? Just be there all day?
I don't exactly, and I can't. And I was like, you know what? Hey, the guy was like, I'm gonna make it 9 to noon. I'm probably gonna get a call in the next 3 minutes to give me a 30-minute, rundown, and I'm gonna go over there and attack and dominate. But I was moving all day yesterday. Built a garage gym in the armory. Are we gonna get to that?
Garage gym in a gym.
Yeah. It was amazing. And then there was a lot. Like I had 20 45s in my garage gym. I mean, who knows when you're ever going to need that much weight? So why not have it? It was amazing. I mean, we did it. My younger son helped me the entire time. Me and DK attacked and dominated. So
I'll never put more than 3 on a bar again. You probably put 4, maybe 5 on, but that's still 10. So
I'll have Phil squat. Last time I did it was like 675, and of course, so 725 for some reps. I mean, that's Hatfield though, so I'm using handles, right? And I'm going down.
Yeah, why don't you just throw it on your back or throw it on a front squat and call it a day? Then do
front squat. Weight. No, I do all the things. Sometimes you just want to feel weight, on your spine. And it's like, all right, cool.
No, I never want to feel weight on my spine. That's why I don't go above 315 anymore, because I can feel the issues with it.
My body feels the best when I lift heavy.
That's why you're losing
low repetition.
Height.
No, I'm still the same. I'll just tell you this, Bob. Side nugget to everybody's out there. I did a DEXA here at the Armory in December. Terrible. No muscle mass increase. No body fat change. My diet's terrible. I fly all over the place. I sleep like hell. Got a sleep study. Ohio Sleep Institute. Boom, I got fitted. I had a sleep apnea. I got fitted not for the mask, but for a retainer. I spent $1,200. I got this retainer. It is phenomenal. I sleep like a champ. Fast forward 5 months later, same training style. Did my diet change? Slightly. I go to Clean Eats and I just order their meals that go with what my dietitian told me to eat. I try to be as consistent as I can, but I still travel all the time. But just because my sleep has gotten better, my training has been the same, and maybe diet slightly, boom, 3.5 pounds of muscle mass on this body.
Look, that's
body fat down, 1.5%. That's where I want to go.
You Buckeyes. So he's getting it done. All right, that's it for our headlines today. Coming up next, we got our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we got some great folks. The chat's always popping here, and thank you for all the support. We really appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing, liking, leaving the messages, the comments, being in there. Our guy Steely Dan had a very nice comment about us, or Steely Matt, not Steely Dan. That's a band. Steely Matt had a great comment about dude's always bringing the best guests and real insights. We try to make sure we have a variety of guests, from players, coaches, to different people that work in the sports media slags that can provide different insight from a national and then also local perspective, to just try to change it up, and see what else is in there with everything,
Yep, you do a great job, Bob. Spicing it up, keeping it real.
I was just looking for some other questions that are here. There was one that was thrown out there. It says, who's hanging stuff outside their shorts? That's also from Steely Matt. And I'll tell you, Steely Matt, when I walk around and then I start lifting, I don't want to leave my towel around like a bum. And my mom doesn't work there, and I'm going to be a 42-year-old man. And so I'm not going to ask anybody else to pick it up. And I don't want to mistakenly leave it someplace. and that would be just disrespectful. So when I get up, I have it tri-folded, and I just put it in tuck it right into the front of my shorts, about 1.5 inches deep on the left side of my hip, and there it stays. And it walks around with me. I pull it out, wipe my face off, get some sweat on there, do whatever I need to do with it, and then I put it back. And that way, when I'm going to leave Schlegs, I can conveniently throw it in the bin. You know what? And so I'm not going to be part of the problem. I'm part of the solution.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, though? I appreciate it. You wipe down. I don't. I just sweat, and then I wipe it down. I probably should have a towel. I don't like stuff hanging around me when I'm lifting. So, but I do appreciate that you use a towel and you wipe down your equipment, and that's a staple. We don't need wipe down police, but we do need all people to wipe down their pieces.
Yeah. All you got to do is just be a considerate dude out there, be a dude.
Somebody else wants to get on there, and if you stand up and there's a swamp ass, boom, line, you know what it is. You've been there, everybody's been there. You get on the machine, you're working, you're really not sweating, but you got some swampage and you can see it on the bench, wipe it up.
All right, Schlegs, favorite way to spend a rainy day from Phil J, also known as PJ.
Favorite way to spend a rainy day? Well, one, praise God, it's not raining in Columbus, Ohio for the 50,000.
Not yet. It hasn't rained all week.
I know. It's great. I can actually mow. Favorite way to spend, honestly, in bed with my wife. That's my favorite way. What are we talking about?
Absolutely.
That's it. That's all I know. That's all I know. There's nothing else to do.
That would be the best. Yeah, I don't know if that's even a possibility for me anymore. So favorite way for me to spend a rainy day. You know what? I threw on Top Gun Maverick the other night and I started watching
nostalgia movies.
Yes, watching nostalgia movies, or if there's a movie that I know is going to be really good that I trust and I've heard and I know I won't be disappointed. By the way, I think it was 2 days ago or maybe even yesterday that it's the 30th anniversary of the release of Tommy Boy Schlegs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Richard.
That's terrible that it's been that long.
So the guy goes 1995. He goes, no, just 20 years. I'm like, no, it's 2025. That's 30. The math was correct the first time. You said 95, and then you're like, oh, no, it can't be 2025, but it is. And by the way, I think yesterday I saw this as well. We are now closer to 2050 than we are closer to 2000. So I don't know if any of us will be alive by then. I'm just hoping to see America's 250th birthday next year, Schlegs. That's what I'm dreaming of. But that's it for our today's questions. Those are some great ones in there. Appreciate you tossing them in the chat for us. Keep those things popping. We'll get some more tomorrow. And we're going to wrap the show with Schlegs' parting thoughts. Oh, this has been in here for a while, Schlegs. Pull it up.
Pull it up, Pat. Pull it up. First off, the guy kind of resembles like me. I was heading down his path. I had a sweet goatee when I first got to Ohio State. I was 260 pounds, lifting a lot of weight, drinking Bud Heavies, eating chicken wings. Go to the next one. Guy plays at Georgia Southern, but he was kicked off the team after chugging beer on top of a bus. Go to the next. Teen Wolf style. Here he is. Look at him in all of his glory. Number 57. He should be number 69. That's number one. But I'll take 57. Okay? And because the middle number of there is 6. So we'll go with it. But anyways, that was amazing.
So my question is, Schlegs, do you think he crawled through the little escape hatch and that's how he got up there on the bus? It's got to be, right?
There's no way he could have, he probably jumped on the back. He couldn't fit through one of those.
Oh, windows. I bet he could.
We all know the slider windows where you had to push in and slide down, and they had to go back and forth.
The new buses, Schlegs, have a little escape hatch, that you can go through the top. So he must have done that.
Well, what about the guy that helped him up? Because Lord knows that guy wasn't doing just a pull up to get himself.
There was another dude
step on somebody's.
There was another dude on a knee who wasn't as aggressive as him. He obviously wanted to take it like the Eagles, take it to the limit.
Take it to the I push.
He did.
I ride.
He did wear 57. like
They're
our,
through the hatch. They're
Yep.
through the hatch, Bob.
like our former teammate who said was he himself, R.I.P. Mike Kudlow,
Yeah,
who said
Mike
he was a little
Kudlow.
crazy. So maybe it is in the number.
Mike Kudlow would have done that. If he would have been a little bit inebriated, he would have done that.
Of course, that's the only. The best part is the worst.
Oh, Boone would have done that for sure.
Boone, yeah, Boone.
Oh, yeah.
It's number 75. You flip that 5 and 7.
Boom, boom. That's the Buckeye version.
Reformed Boone now, but the Boone back in the day. All right, Schlegs, that's it for today's show. Boom, stay locked in here with us. We'll see you tomorrow.